Hi, well, I'm here with one of the main writers, really the main writer, along with her husband Randy and a few others, but the main one, Barb, who writes our VBS programs for Answers in Genesis. And the one for 2020 is called Mystery Island, and it was just tested at a church in Ohio. In fact, there's two test church or pilot churches or whatever you want to call them. And Barb, hundreds and hundreds, actually between both churches, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids.
Right.
And you have some feedback. This is the VBS that deals with who God is. We're helping people understand our culture is more like Acts 17. It's more like a Greek culture. We need to teach children about the true God, the creator God, because many today don't really understand who the true God is. It's like the Greeks who needed to understand the altar to the unknown God. This is the true God, the creator God. Because in our culture today, there are many gods, small g,
Right.
and so this teaches them how great God is. He's infinite in power and wisdom, how holy He is. Our sin teaches them our need of salvation. It's an incredible VBS, and as Bob said to me earlier, this is the best one yet, but she says it every year. I've been saying that for how many?
But
how
I
many have
really
we done?
mean it.
We've done about
Every year.
10, 12?
At least 12.
At least 12. And it's
gonna have to count
each
now.
one, each year is the best one ever because they keep evolving. No, we don't use
No.
that word. Yeah.
Right.
By design, they get it better and better. Okay, give us some feedback from Mystery Island.
Well, we've had hundreds of kids go through this now. And of course, we get a lot of feedback from the kids, a lot of feedback from moms and dads. And we just wanted to share a few things. We had a little boy tell us he was so excited because he learned that Jesus forgives him
Isn't
for
that
his
something?
sin. He
Wow.
didn't know that. And his grandma died, sadly, the week of VBS. But he said he knew his grandma was a Christian, and he knew that he could be forgiven of his sin and see her again because we had taught about that. So he was super excited. These are the kind of real life conversations that we
Right.
have. We had other moms talking about conversations they had in their car with their kids, where the kids were discussing things that were idols to us, their phones. A little kindergartner, we talked about what we really treasure. Do you treasure anything more than God? And he said, after thinking about it, I treasure my video games more than God. And that started an entire conversation with the class. And these are the kinds of conversations that this VBS opened up because we were talking so much about God, who He truly is. And they didn't know a lot of these things. Some church kids might have heard some of it, but they were just kind of blown away learning about it and telling us much more about what they had come across.
And what about salvation testimonies? I know we've heard many over the years. And some of those, even from this year, from the 2019 VBS, the Incredible Race, all about one family, one race, I've already had people tell me that they've seen children converted through the VBS, but not just children, even adults.
That happens every year where we get a lot of testimony from adults and teenagers that their lives have been changed, that they're thinking about it, that they even have become Christians through this. I know at our church we had, I always hesitate slightly to make a number because only God really knows for sure what happened, but there were 28 kids who professed to make decisions for Christ this week. We also had a number of children given Bibles who did not have a Bible, so that was really exciting. And at this church here, the other one, and also a number of children, because they're hearing this and learning about this in a different way than they've ever heard. Some of them have never heard this, or the seeds were just planted, and this is the week that God waters it, and they become Christians.
So, Barb, you have been writing the VBS now for us for many years, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids and thousands of adults as well have been impacted by the VBS. Have you seen a change in our culture and even the kids that are coming to VBS now that they're not as biblically literate or don't even know about God? I mean, is it becoming, you're seeing the culture's more pagan and that's why we need to do a VBS like this one?
Right, that is exactly why we did this one. We also work at our church and have seen that through our church and through the VBS. People, you can't just assume that they know who God is anymore. And that's why we decided we had to do this VBS. The most important thing about us is our view of God. It affects everything about us. And when we heard that little quote from Tozer, we said, we have got to do this VBS. And it really did blow people's minds. We had a lot of fun teaching them about the one true God, but it was a serious subject, of course. It's fun, but it's serious at the same time.
And I was down watching some of the kids in their rooms, and they were doing science experiments.
Yes.
A VBS where they do science experiments.
Yes, and we do that every year, but we really took it up a notch this year. And it was really cool, like just one of the testimonies we filmed last week at our church, and they were putting jewels in. They were doing a science experiment with it, but as they put these jewels in this one container, every child had to think of an attribute of God. And there were probably 40 kids in that room, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, at least.
At least stuffed into that room. And as I watched them, there was no trouble with every one of them thinking up a different attribute of God.
I know, I saw that.
They just reeled them off because they're just thinking now about this amazing God. And that's what people keep telling me, that they just can't quit thinking about this amazing God and all the things they heard. In fact, with these treasure chests we did, this is one of the treasure chests that we use, but we're going to show you how you can make your own as well. But we hid these around, and we had all these different little clues and stuff in them. And some of the types of things that we might have just said, super simple, but kids don't know this. God is astonishingly kind to us. Every kindness you've ever been shown is a reflection of God, because God is kind. He's the one that, made up kind.
And in at a time when there's a lot of family breakups and family problems and single parent families, that must really minister to a lot of these kids.
It did, and we talked about his goodness. We talked about every mouthful of food you've ever experienced, every time you've petted a puppy or a kitten, every time you felt a cool breeze. That's God's goodness. And we talked about James 1:17, where it talks about every good gift comes down from the Father. Every good gift. Maybe people don't have kind fathers on earth, but God is a kind Father. And so just a lot of these kind of little thoughts. God has never learned one thing new. And he's never been surprised. He's never tried to figure anything out. He's never had to ask for advice. He's never had a plan B. And
he's never made a mistake.
Never. We made a big deal out of that. His perfection is something that you need to really nail down in your mind. Because people get messed up a little bit with with just when something goes wrong, and then they don't think God is kind anymore. But he is, and we talked about that in this, as we always talk about.
And that's one of the reasons why it's important, what we do at Answers in Genesis, to explain to them from the Bible that we do live in a fallen world. It's not perfect anymore because of our sin. That's why we need a Savior.
Right, but we did talk to them about Romans 8:28, that he can work all things together for good for his children. And we talked about, again, experiencing God's goodness. We experience it in so many ways, through our sense of touch, taste, sight, hearing, smell, good gifts from a good Father. And so I think it was really impactful, and it was really fun to hear the moms' conversations that they heard in the cars. Kids were talking about what things were idols. Kids were talking about, we sent them home with the sheet about, we didn't use these exact words, but his incommunicable attributes and his communicable. So the ones that only he has. We are not eternal from eternity past, but he is. We change. He never changes. So we talked about that, or the ones that he is the perfect version of, but we are a small reflection because we're made in his image. And just the conversations the kids were having, trying to figure out which one of those were just God, which ones we can reflect him. I mean, these were big conversations.
Yeah. And these young kids were enjoying it.
Loving it.
I tell you another part that excites me. I saw them get so excited in here, jumping up, throwing their hands in the air and yelling out, with the competition in regard to whether the boys or the girls raised money for missions the most. And I saw the girls won for this one.
They did.
And
they won at our church too.
Our VBS, we have worked with Children's Hunger Fund over the years. We still work with them. And children bring along for our VBS, offering a quarter. Every 25 cents supplies a meal to a hungry child.
Right.
And through the VBS program and our relationship with Children's Hunger Fund, I believe we're up to about 6.5 million meals that have been supplied to underprivileged people around the world, and kids get so excited to know that they bring something that they give that helps other boys and girls receive not just
Right.
physical food, but spiritual food as well.
Right, because they share the gospel whenever
Right.
they take those meals, and they
Yes.
also get them involved in local churches. So it's a fantastic mission project. It's awesome. Just so many different aspects of this VBS. We've just heard every single area of it. Good things. Praise God.
Well, Barb, I know now you'll be sort of refining things, getting ready so that
Yep.
we produce all the different items,
Yep.
hundreds of sort of things involved, and all the guides and the digital content and all the music and all that goes along with it. Now, video team are working hard on all that. There's a lot that goes into producing a VBS, and I'm sure you're already thinking of 2021, so that you'll have a pilot program for that next year in 2020.
We're already thinking.
So what excites you the most? And we'll end on this. What excites you the most about these VBS programs?
Well, just having an opportunity to share the gospel clearly. And for kids who already are believers, helping to disciple them because they need this rich content. And so I love the fact that we can do this in a really exciting way where they're going to have joyful memories, but that they're really going to hear the truth. There's going to be kids saved, and there's going to be kids who grow in their walk with the Lord. That excites me.
That's what it's all about. And
what
you
it's
know,
all about.
Answers in Genesis is a very unique ministry. We have an emphasis on apologetics, biblical authority, the gospel, all goes together. We do science experiments at a VBS, so it's not just entertainment, fluff and stuff.
Not at all.
We want to teach them, we want to equip them, and we want to see all of them be to that point where they have received the free gift of salvation.
Absolutely.
That's what VBS is all
Yep.
about. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.